So recently Robert Jenrick made some comments when he went to Birmingham, and I'm going to preface this by saying that I disagree with everything I've included in this segment. Everyone is wrong except me, and I think the panel's probably going to agree here that the entire discourse is ridiculous and it's quite frustrating. It is quite obvious why the Conservative Party is dying and why mainstream journalism is also on the wane, because they're just missing it. So The Guardian obtained a recording of Robert Jenrick when he was in Birmingham, and he said the following: "I went to Handsworth in Birmingham the other day to do a video on litter, and it was absolutely appalling. It's as close as I've come to a slum in this country, but the other thing I noticed was that it was one of the worst integrated places I've ever been to. In fact, in the hour and a half I was filming news there, I didn't see another white face. That's not the kind of country I want to live in. I want to live in a country where people are properly integrated. It's not about the colour of your skin or your faith. Of course, it isn't. But I want people to be living alongside each other, not parallel lives. That's not the right way we want to live as a country." Now, I don't necessarily agree with all of what Jenrick said there. So the first part, that Birmingham's horrible, I do agree with.
It's a surprise that he found that a surprise.
I know. Has he seen pictures?
Were you not aware of the 2021 census maps or something? Like,
we'll be getting to those.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
But the latter part, that it's even desirable to have this form of integration. I think that the multicultural experiment has failed. Mm-hmm. It's quite obvious that it's an aspect of human nature that people seek out people who are similar to them and live in sort of enclaves. And it's not necessarily to criticise ethnic minorities, because it's true of Britons in, say, Spain as well. It's just how human beings behave when they're a minority in another country, and it's perfectly natural that people seek out those who are similar to them. But I just
the path of least resistance, right?
Of course, yeah.
There are people here who I understand, who are familiar to me, and I'm going to get goods and services from them because I can speak their language and I know they're predictable.
It's just more pleasant to live around people like you, basically.
It's even with that added, it's still just functionally a lot easier as well. Sorry.
It's what Aristotle, who merits a restoration. I don't know if anyone's working on such a project at the moment.
I don't know, but there might be.
It's what Aristotle would have called philia, the idea of strong kinship bonds being natural between human beings, and so it's not an aspect of human nature that necessarily carries with it any moral weight. It's just something that we do.
So if you go to an African country, odds are you will find a Lebanese enclave where all of the Lebanese are living next to each other and staying away from everybody else. Yeah. And odds are you will find at least one or two neighborhoods where the Europeans all congregate and live next to each other, and they go to different restaurants and they go to different bars, and they try to live separate lives from each other, and they establish different schools. If you go to the UAE, everybody likes to talk about the UAE. There's a British school, there's a French school, there's an Indian school. Every single ethnic group has established their own separate bubble while living in a very diverse society. They might be neighbors, but they don't interact with each other as neighbors or as people who have common bonds.
Yes.
So the West is meant to be the great exception without understanding what makes the West exceptional. And it's just completely unrealistic to have this kind of expectation.
And it's not theoretical anymore. All of the evidence on the ground attests to this fact.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this is precisely what Jenrick got in trouble for.
Exactly.
Yes.
But moreover, the whole integration thing. Sorry, I didn't ask for this. Actually, I wanted to just live normally.
It's not in our interest, is it?
Well, even whether our interest or not, I didn't ask for this. We lived in a nice little place. It was just normal, like 95% English in 1991. And then suddenly you're like, no, you're going to have to live next to a bunch of foreigners. So I'm not even saying they're bad people. A lot of them are not bad people. But revealed preference is we move away from that. And so, okay, well, they can form their ethnic enclave because there's space made available for them.
And expressed preference and went until it was crushed as well.
Exactly. And I'm sorry that that's just the case that has happened.
Well, I mean, it's entirely obvious if you look at the 2021 census data that many parts of Birmingham are now less than 10% white. This is just a screenshot because I'm going to go into more specifics in the actual census map itself. But you can see here that much of the centre of Birmingham has
any of the light
been,
green is like 10%.
Yes, and so you can see that this is true of many major cities. It's true of even London as well.
It's true of Swindon. This is basically what's happening in Swindon, where you notice all around the edge where it's a very dark blue, that's almost 100% English. And the English have just been like, okay, well, I won't live in the city centre then. And it's exactly the same in Swindon. If you look at the outside, it's all just this dark blue ring where the English is just like, okay, well, I'm just going to move a bit back into the Shire because I didn't ask to live next to a bunch of foreigners. I just didn't ask for that. I want to live next to people I understand.
Yeah.
And it's completely normal. It's not prejudicial. It's just the way, as you said, it's philia.
Yeah.
It's what you understand. You do it without thinking.
I think you're really right as well, Josh, if I may say, to mention that Jenrick, though of course he deserves credit for putting his head above the parapet in this way and making this comment, he is still, his implication that integration would be desirable is still wrong, because we're talking here, as Carl's just been delineating, but let's use an analogy just to clinch the point. It would be like saying, oh yeah, no, I know that a family that you never asked to be in your home is now living there and squatting there, but don't worry, like you can put the pictures up that you want to be put up here, and they can have their own little corner of the sitting room, and you can choose the kitchen table, they can choose the couch. Like, no. That's
Why am I giving up any of my house to these people?
An unflinching defense of the right of the majority to defend itself, maintain itself, and assert itself non-violently.
The conception of a nation as a homeland for its people rather than an economic zone.
Right.
So
Radical. It's crazy idea.
Here we can see individual areas of Birmingham here. 2.8% white English, Welsh, Scottish, or Northern Irish. Blimey. So,
and most of when they have white
2.8%?
British, it's just going to be English as well, because obviously Birmingham being
and you can see lots of them are in
it's horrific.
The low percentages here. It's not just me cherry picking. Some of them are slightly above 10%.
Oh, wow. 85%
I know.
are not English.
I know.
Like, this is crazy, and we should never have allowed this.
And it's happened so rapidly. And this is what I think Jenrick was actually getting at, is that his notion of integration, which I disagree with, is that there's still got to be some English people or British people or whatever there for it to be integrated. If they're pushed out, it doesn't count as integration. I would say
integrating into.
Yeah, well, there's nothing. They're just supplanting the native population.
Precisely.
But I would argue that this is inevitable, because it's an aspect of human nature that is immutable and you can't change it. And it's foolish to even try, because it's so deeply rooted in our behaviour, it can't be overcome. Nor should it be.
Yeah, and even if it could be, why should we have to?
We shouldn't.
There was nothing immoral about it. There was nothing unusual about it, unnatural about it, wrong about it.
And every single one of the people who predominates in these areas defends that
principle
times 10, not gently as we would want to do, but pretty thoroughgoingly in, say, Pakistan or India or wherever it happens to be.
Mm-hmm. And this is what happened with the stabbing in Manchester the other day. You had a majority Jewish neighbourhood right next to a majority Muslim neighbourhood. They had actually segregated themselves under this very same principle of, I want to live around people like me. So,
it's a microcosm of the Israel-Palestine conflict,
basically,
isn't it?
Precisely. We'd recreated it on British soil.
Why not?
And we're surprised that it happened.
So memorise this sort of distribution in Birmingham, because we're going to look at economic inactivity now. And you can see that, I didn't mean to zoom in that far, but you can see even in places like London, okay, it's very diverse, perhaps not to the same degree as some other parts. It has more white British people in London than in Birmingham.
No, that's not true. London's 37% in this census, Birmingham's 42%.
As in the city centre, I mean.
Yeah.
No, as in, I can go back if you want.
Yeah.
I'll show you. Oh, what are you doing?
I'm absolutely certain that... Samson, what are you doing, son?
Oi. Oh, it wasn't you.
No, it wasn't, but I wasn't touching it either.
That's weird. It's a ghost.
Yeah, even the city centre, like...
It's not like large. In the few percentage points, though, is it?
Well, I think it depends where you drill down into, right?
But anyway, my point being...
You literally do... In some, I mean, okay.
It's not to the same scale, but the point being that economically, it's still not as unproductive as a place like Birmingham, which is even further along. And the point being here that you can correlate the displacement of the white British with economic inactivity. Go ahead and zoom in. We can see that the inactivity mirrors the spread of basically diversity. That the city centre is the most economically inactive. And is quite significant, over 50% in many places, and this is something that is, of course, an utter disaster, because one would presume that a city, the whole economic benefit of having a city is that it's centralised and that it's economically efficient. And so, if your city centre, which should be the most economically efficient area, is the most economically inefficient, it sort of suggests a massive problem here, doesn't it? Yeah, it suggests that this has failed, maybe.
Well, I mean,
which I think
what
it
the
has.
plan was, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, if the plan is to destroy Britain, then it's going excellently.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So, moving on to this, he did double down on what he said. Unlike many other politicians, he didn't go in and grovel and apologise, which is worth mentioning because there were many people calling for him to do that. And there was a wide range of reactions from the left, and let's have a look.
Can I just say something? The problem with him doubling down on this is he's doubling down on the 2000s colourblind consensus. That's the problem. He's saying, well, look, if we want integration, if we want multiculturalism, there has to be some of ours and some of theirs, right? And it's like, yeah, okay, sure, but why do we have to give up our second city to a bunch of people who are not from this country?
We should have our own corner of the sitting room.
Exactly, yeah. Well, that's home. My chair. Why are you not sat in your chair? It's like, sorry, you don't even live in this house.
Exactly.
Sorry.
So we had Labour MPs like Paulette Hamilton, who I think grew up in Handsworth. Yes. Said represented it for 18 years, and she was basically just inviting him to have a tour and meet her mum, which is probably
that's not going to show him a white face, is it? What are you doing?
You're completely wrong. Meet my mum.
She was reacting to the slum comment, which I think is the least controversial of the lot.
Yeah, that's something that everyone is aware.
Anyone with a functioning pair of eyes can tell that it's a slum. Okay,
it's not bin strikes going on.
And everyone's favourite dyslexic Lotus eater pointed out that all of the rubbish on the side of the road, this wasn't a problem in Britain beforehand. And it's starting to look... It's like if you're using Street View and you drop it anywhere in India, you see rubbish everywhere.
That's funny.
And it's the same thing. It's become just a product of the people who have moved there, which is very unsurprising. And yes, obviously, check out the channel.
So it's become apparent that there's something wrong with modern morality. There is something wrong with what we think in which the good life consists. And that's why I asked Stelios to write me a course on how to be moral. But we are also going to do a webinar where we answer questions. There'll be a Zoom call that you can get a link to. It'll be free. You just come, we'll put it up on the website. Just follow the link in the description. Come and join us. Like I said, it's going to be free. So we're just going to hang out and talk and explain exactly why this is so important. And if you want the course, the link is in the description, or go to courses.lotuses.com and pick it up there. And thanks for watching, folks.
The Guardian accused him of toxic nationalism. This is the headline they went with. It was actually...
I don't want a segregated Lebanese community, thank you.
It was
toxic nationalism.
Basically, the Bishop of Birmingham that said this. He said... the comments have the potential to generate anxiety and stir up division and can feed into harmful narratives that provides fuel for a fire of toxic nationalism.
But what does that even, anxiety, fuel a fire, what does that even mean in practical terms?
It's don't upset.
It's verbiage intended to form part of a war I'm noticing. Mm-hmm. I lived in Whitechapel, a very Bangladeshi area, unfortunately. It was very convenient for where I was working. And First, I had a Sharia patrol outside my house. Then there was the fact that I had people knocking on my door on a Friday asking me if I was going to mosque. And the third was that the amount of rubbish strewn on the street in what should be prime real estate for people who want to get to the city was just insane. And then there's the sort of Bangladeshi markets where you kind of go, what the hell is that? And the idea that you're not allowed to say any of this stuff is offensive. You're meant to apply a permanent filter that prevents you from noticing the transformation that you're seeing. Yes. And I don't understand.
It's a defense of the status quo. They are happy. Their model for the country is Birmingham, is Whitechapel. And if you object to that, then you're fueling toxic nationalism. As if, God, if only Robert Jenrick was. If only. He was nearly the monster they were painting him to be, but no. It's pathetic. And I hate this argument of, you're stoking division. Yeah, you're damn right I am. Right? Because there's a conflict going on here. There's
division whether we like it or not.
Exactly. There's two visions of the world. There's ours and there's yours. And I want that division because we're going to win. What division means is a conflict that gets resolved through whatever means. For us, it'll be at the ballot box because we are a democracy whether people like it or not. And we're going to win. We're going to win this easily. In fact, Nigel Farage isn't even anywhere near what they're painting him to be, and people are voting for him on those grounds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Like Keir Starmer said, like, it's a war for the soul of the country. Nigel Farage represents Little England and all this sort of stuff. It's like, not really. But
Free advertising, really.
but that's what they think he represents. That's what they think they project it onto him. And so, yeah, we're going to win this.
A quick word on the war on noticing. I think you're absolutely right, Firas. But the thing is that and you know this, of course, but they're not starting this war today. It's a war that they have been waging for a while.
It started with the Race Relations Act of
Started a while
1965,
ago,
right?
wherever you want to date it from. It's in the immediate post-war period.
That's how you ended up with this.
Yeah, well, quite. But the thing is that people have these taboos are these sort of blunt instruments: toxic nationalism, racism, fascism, far right. They have grown completely blunt through overuse over a long time period.
Yes.
And then you also throw in the fact that social media has just blown this wide open. So the idea that you can stop people from seeing the consequences of policy is absurd at this point. You can lie, Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart and James O'Brien, they can bemoan the fact that they're doing Britain down all they like, but we see the evidence of our own eyes in a way that when you lived in sort of Hugh Grant's 90s Britain, and a lot of this wasn't as immediately visible,
Britain.
Love Actually Britain, it actually made a bit more sense intuitively for people to say, well, yeah, no, we shouldn't be too judgmental about certain groups and all the rest of it, that maybe there aren't group differences because I'm sort of living in this lovely little... But now that we don't live in that world, it is just unsustainable for them to have this taboo and for them to expect it to work anymore. And
it's just further radicalising people.
Have you seen
further
Callum's
radicalising
thread?
people.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
And then crucially, this is the last point, people feel up against it demographically. People are increasingly aware of the demographic projections. And there will come a point, and I would argue we're already there, where people... sort of, that sort of graph, it's like save Western civilization, get called racist. Don't save Western civilization, still get called racist.
Yeah.
The more
Yes.
the more that becomes an apparent choice to people, the more they're just going to take these comments on the chin.
And that's why Nigel Farage is at 35%. After Keir Starmer declared him to be the enemy of the regime, and that he represents this horrific nativism, everyone was like, "Oh, brilliant! Okay, I will vote for him then." So,
Yeah, he could be at 50% if you were to sort of take a couple of more steps to the right.
I agree with you.
He could be at 50 or 60%.
Be what your enemies conjure you up to be.
Well,
Look,
it's
where's
pushing
the
him
loss?
up in the polls.
Like,
It's pushing him up in the polls when they call him a racist. Anyway.
So, obviously, the usual suspects are calling it racist. Not really that notable. They're also appealing to local residents. Of course, the local residents aren't exactly going to
The local
the
residents
displaced
like,
natives.
I don't understand the language you're using. Speak to me.
Bit nasty of them to go for a pre-Ozempic picture as well, I think.
And Keir Starmer said Jenrick is hard to take seriously, which is not saying much. I think his popularity
After the
just boosted.
Birmingham comments, what? That's ridiculous.
I mean, I didn't-
firstly, who takes Keir Starmer seriously?
Yeah, I know. By insulting someone, he's only making them more popular. So he's foolish to even do this in the
Judgment
first
by
place.
my enemies.
hmm And a former Conservative mayor of Birmingham said that it's actually a very integrated place, not the definition of a slum, which is just denial. isn't it?
It's worth remembering that the census was done before the Boris wave as well.
Yes.
So this was how things were before they decided, actually, we need millions more.
And also Birmingham host to a lot of Indians and Pakistanis. We were talking about the reality of philia as an aspect of human nature. If I was an Indian and I moved to Britain, despite the fact that India is a bit of a slum, I probably would move there. And so presumably a lot of the Boris wave, in other words, has found itself in Birmingham.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And your sort of quintessential platonic ideal of a woke professor also agrees with this. She's even got pink hair.
This is superb. Make them defend Birmingham. Like that's
Yes.
Birmingham is their model.
Yeah, that's the
Well,
That's
she's
what they
a
want.
professor at the University of Birmingham, I think. That's
Incredible.
why she's doing it.
She wades through the rubbish on her way to work.
I know. Yeah.
Brilliant, diverse, vibrant city.
But how is she into science when her rejection of the evidence is so comprehensive?
It's all ideology these days, isn't it?
Yeah, Carl, we were in Birmingham not too long ago. Was it a nice place? Yeah.
On the drive-in,
Yeah.
we were just like, wow, there are no white people around here at all. And there was,
Played a
I
little
saw
game.
one guy on his bike, and it's like he'd been taken out of time or something. Because he's like wearing all the cycling equipment,
Yeah.
and it's just like women in burqas pushing wheelchairs, and then this one ginger white guy on his bike, and it's like, what are you doing?
Probably listening to the rest is politics.
Yeah.
Why were you in Birmingham? Just doing.
We had a conference.
Oh, you did a conference there.
Yeah, for some reason they decided to torture us with it. But
Nice venue, though.
it was a lovely venue,
in
just in
the
Birmingham.
skeleton of former Birmingham.
Yeah.
And you even get things like this. Thank the Tories for keeping Robert Jenrick out of high office. Well done, Financial Times.
See, it was Boris trying to placate the Financial Times that brought in the Boris wave in the first place. He literally admitted it. And thank you, Financial Times.
This is why no one reads you anymore. And here's another one. Robert Jenrick urged to apologise for disgraceful integration comments. this is just the usual talking heads trying to make people apologise because it gives them power over them. And then you have this from the BBC: you don't have to be white to be English.
No,
Which,
this wasn't
of course,
from the BBC. This was from, what's her name there? Right there. Rani Rauji. Typical English.
and it's also written by Tanya Gupta and Ada Fofana.
Have you actually looked through this article?
I have, yes. I'm going to get back to it.
Okay.
So first and foremost, I want to point out that back in 2015, in more normal times, The Independent will publish things like this, and if we have a better view of this graph, you can see a distinct ethnic profile of the English here. We can see the borders of the Celtic lands of Scotland, Wales, and Devon and Cornwall. These are distinct from England genetically and culturally, somewhat at least, in the case of Devon at least. But we can see that the English do exist as a genetic thing, and you can't really define that away. If you can see it in genetics, and it's on these genetic maps that are perfectly mainstream to the point where The Independent was more than happy to publish it, even though it did have
coded headline.
It does, yes. It's obviously left-wing coded, but it's also missing the point.
I love the subtitle. White English share 40% of their DNA with the French, that alien race from across the oceans.
It's not even true either. We don't share 40% of our DNA with the French.
It's also not an impressive thing. Like 10,000 years makes it look really, really like, oh man, this is a huge deal. The continent in Britain at that time, like before then, was frozen over because of an ice age. So like there was a sort of genetic like blank slate, if you like, that makes it actually easier for geneticists to study the genetic history of the British Isles, and it is just a remarkably homogeneous story until 1948.
I mean, the fact that literally our sort of closest like foreign neighbour being the French, and it's only 40% similarity.
Yeah, well, that's
crazy.
A very, very high estimate. Like the Norman French really had an imprint. It's only they're probably amplifying just the similarities. But the thing is, if you think about the Beaker folk,
but if you think about the kind of people that have happened to make those nations come about, so you've got the Germanic Franks over the Celtic Gauls, and you've got the Germanic Saxons over the Celtic Britons, and they're only 40% the same. That's actually, in all of the respects, you would expect these people to basically be identical in every way. Like they probably would have been able to understand one another's language when the tribes were moving into these different areas. Even so it's.
I'm going to make a much more problematic point.
Oh, good.
I think with chimpanzees there is a 99% overlap in genetics, 97% with gorillas and 94% with bonobos.
With Homo sapiens, yeah.
So tiny differences when the similarity is that, like, if you're 99% similar DNA to a chimp, that means that remaining 1% has insane significance.
Well, we share 60% of our genes with a banana.
There you go. So small variations here have an enormous impact, but they try to brush over that by saying, "Oh, 40% is huge."
Yeah, this is sorry.
So there's a level of there's a sleight of hand involved. There's a bit of dishonesty and disingenuity involved, because tiny differences turn out to be important enough to make you into an entirely different species.
Yes. Yeah.
So I hate this manipulation of the numbers. I'm a Catholic. I believe we're all created by God. Fair enough. But I don't like dishonesty because I'm a Catholic.
By God, really.
Usually, there's no such thing as sort of perfect ethnic purity, but that doesn't mean that there aren't very, very consequential degrees of homogeneity. An example I like to use is that technically apples share quite a bit of genetic overlap with killer whales,
right?
But that doesn't make killer whales at home in the fruit bowl, but they're slightly closer to oranges, so oranges do look a bit more at home in the fruit bowl. So these degrees do matter, and they're extremely significant. But then second, just because a population moves in, usually quite a small population, an elite population like the Normans, I think a 5% demographic population shift as a result of the Norman conquest. That's about right. Yeah. They didn't send them all in.
No.
No one would ever say that India doesn't exist because the British were there in small proportions, ruling it administratively, not really demographically, for however many centuries, better half of 3 centuries. It would be absurd to claim that. And similarly, the Normans have actually had very little genetic impact on the British Isles.
They had more influence on our language than our genes.
Certainly they did, yes.
So,
oh yes, you and I have discussed this before, haven't we?
We have.
Yes.
For the sake of time, then, let's carry on.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yes.
So, this is what you're alluding to.
It is, yeah, I love this guy.
Marij Khan said the area was a slum, and he was not offended by the comments because they were true. There he is. looking very serious.
Good on him.
Indian bro.
Yeah.
Mr. Khan said he only saw Asian and black people, adding, "I never saw a white face around here. There were, however, white people living in the area," he said, "but they tended not to be British."
It could be Inevitable West, come to think of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, based on
Unmasked.
Yeah.
As for the area's appearance, he added there was garbage everywhere, a bit of an American import there. Rubbish, please. With multiple people living in single houses, sometimes 3 or 4 families in one property, he claimed. That sort of qualifies as a slum in my mind. Mr. Khan stated that if there was integration in the area, you would see faces of every other colour, which is,
Great point.
Yeah.
Mr. Khan is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else is lying.
Very true.
Like, literally. So you go back to the headline, like, "Oh, you don't have to be white to be English," says Indian woman. It's like, who cares about your opinion on it? You're lying. Mr. Khan is telling the truth.
Can you be white and Indian? Like, aside from Kashmir?
Yeah, is Rudyard Kipling India's greatest poet? Yes or no?
Yes. Sorry, I'm being facetious.
I don't want to give him up. No, he's England's greatest poet.
Anyway, the Tory party, funnily enough, the sort of slowly marching skeleton of the Tory party, was divided on this. Kemi Badenoch did defend Jenrick and said it was just an observation. Who cares, really? Which is, fair enough. But then Mel Stride, who is a political non-entity, slapped it down and rebuked it. And this is, of course, causing a split because she's in the cabinet, which is interesting.
Mel's is a bloke.
Really?
Yeah.
It's difficult to tell
or
the Tory
is he?
party.
I can't believe your level of prejudice. How could you judge?
How do you know?
How could you judge?
Have you even checked?
Like, seriously, did you ask about their pronouns?
Jokes aside, though, there shouldn't be a single
know.
person in the Conservative Party who should consider this in any way remarkable. And if anyone's like, "Oh, you can't say that," well, that's it. You're not a Conservative. Get to the lip down.
That's the thing. If Jenrick were to become leader, which seems to be quite probable,
There he is.
He needs to kick all those people.
he has the opportunity to sort of kick out all of these people. And if he were to be brilliant, like, there is no point in there being that many Conservative MPs in Parliament right now. He could just remove the whip from a bunch of them. And he could purge the party before going into a 2029 election, which would actually improve the party to no end. If you wanted to do something a little bit creative, a little bit bold.
Yes.
Let's see where he goes.
Okay, well, this did have an article talking about how the party chair agreed with him, but never mind, it's gone. Apparently he doesn't anymore. But anyway, my point is that everyone in this story is wrong. This is
No, apart from Mr. Khan, who was completely correct.
except him.
Sorry, based Mr. Khan. Sorry.
Yeah, except Mr. Khan
Thank you.
and obviously the panel here, us talking about it. Obviously Birmingham's a slum. Obviously it's a terrible place to live. Obviously is not an integration success story if all of the natives have been displaced, as is true of lots of other areas of Britain. So even pursuing integration as a goal is foolish because it's against human nature.
What's the billions must die meme again? The face.
Oh, the chud.
Yeah, the
one.
chud. Yeah, I love that it's Indian chud who's like no, Britain has fallen. There are no white people here. They're all foreigners. It's like, okay, yeah, good point. So it's become apparent that there's something wrong with modern morality. There is something wrong with what we think in which the good life consists. And that's why I asked Stelios to write me a course on how to be moral. Because thankfully, we happen to have a long history, written history of morality that we can actually call upon here, and we can actually reconstruct it ourselves. And so I asked him to write me a course on ancient Greek virtue ethics because he happens to be an Athenian philosopher with a PhD in philosophy. So who better to do it?
Well, thank you very much for this. The course and the preparation for it and recording it was an incredible experience, and I'm very grateful for this.
Really think, and I really mean this, like I think that actually it is our job in this time and this place to start putting all of this back together, and that's why I asked Stelios to do this course, and that's the purpose of this course. But we are also going to do a webinar where we answer questions. It'll be a Zoom call that you can get a link to. It'll be free. You just come, we'll put it up on the website. Just follow the link in the description. And I really think this is a part of the reconstruction of the West more broadly. And I think that without someone undergoing a project like this, then the job will never be done. I just think we fall into the modern immoral rules-based order, and that's the future unless we do something about it. Come and join us. Like I said, it's going to be free, so we're just going to hang out and talk and explain exactly why this is so important. And if you want the course, the link is in the description, or go to courses.lotuses.com and pick it up there. And thanks for watching, folks.